We know from a UN report that 25 million acres of deforestation is happening now. That's an area the size of Pennsylvania lost every single year. We know that 75% of the Earth's surfaces right now is fully compromised by human activity. And nature that we need to survive is being pushed into smaller and smaller little corners all around the planet. It's happening here in Lancaster. We can see it with our own eyes when we sit in traffic and we see the warehouses, shopping centers, housing developments spreading across our landscape. And we worry. And we think, what can we do? We wait for our government to act, and yet they refuse. And then we think about the personal sacrifices that Eric talked about, the sacrifices that we need personally to give up. Will we stop driving our car? Will we stop eating meat? Will we stop ordering takeout and dealing with all the disposable Ziploc bags and paper towels that do our life? And then it comes to travel. Are you willing to give up travel? And quite frankly, I'm not. And so as a result of that, I end up having this hopeless feeling. That hopeless feeling, though, led me to think a lot about this and to come to the Lancaster Conservancy and to propose what I call a third way. A third way that we can act as a community to deal with this loss of habitat that is so critically important. That third way we call protect, which is defense, and restore, which is offense. So under the protect banner, it's what the Conservancy does. We look around this community and we look for those few places that trees still exist, places that need to be saved from development, literally. Those trees, those lands that are so beautiful, that sustain biodiversity, that are carbon sinks, that offset our carbon footprint, they're being compromised, and we are losing them. We're losing them right and left. Between 1980 and 2000, we lost an average of 1,600 acres a year to development. Do the math, 20 years, that, my friends, is 29,000 acres lost to development, and that's an area the size of Manheim Township. That's 5% of our land here in Lancaster County lost in just 20 years. During the same time, the Conservancy only saved 4,000 acres. Wow, that's a pretty sad story. But it is changing, and the good news is we are acting locally. Development has slowed down to about 400 acres a year, and we're backfilling a lot, and the Conservancy is accelerating this defensive move of saving nature. So that's the good news. The good news is the Conservancy, playing defense, is trying to protect what we have for all the reasons. You know, the biodiversity, the storing the carbon, the cleaning the water, and cleaning the air. But that's not nearly enough when you look at the land lost to development. We must also restore. We must restore the land that we have. And so I'm here today to share that restoration story with you and for you to think about it in your own life. We have 190,000 individual property owners in Lancaster County. The average tract of land is 3.2 acres. You take the farms, you take the city lots, do the math. We have all of this land that each one of us can do something with. Something that's going to store carbon, something that's going to enhance the biodiversity, and something that is going to save you money. Now, who in this room wouldn't want to do that? I know I want to. And it's really quite simple. We need to put our mowers away. We need to reduce the size of our lawns, and we need to plant native trees, plants, and grasses. And we need to do that as every property owner. So if you look across the landscape, you think about the lawns. I drove in by Long's Park. It's all mowed. I went by the Red Rose Shopping Center. All their stormwater basin is sitting there, mowed. It could be a pollinator park. The Department of Conservation and Natural Resources estimates that Lancaster County has 100,000 acres of land that is mowed. 100,000 acres of land mowed, and mowed by equipment that actually pollutes the air more than what it stores carbon. And lawns are ecological deserts. I hate to tell you, you maybe have 1 or 2 types of grass, but other than that, you are destroying nature. Every time you get on a lawnmower and every time you push a lawnmower that is carbon-based, just to create something beautiful to look at. And so restore is this message we really want to bring to you tonight. We must restore our land, and our lawns in particular. And you might say, well, this doesn't work. This doesn't work at all because, well, we've always had lawns and nobody wants to change that. Lawns are a status symbol. They're an example of what we think rich people have. But I will tell you, there's an entomologist, a famous conservationist and award-winning author. His name is Doug Tallamy, and many of you in this room have heard of him. But he took 10 acres of lawn, just 35 miles east of here in Chester County, and he basically counted the number of species with his students at the University of Delaware, and he came up with less than 100 of all the plants, animals, birds, and insects that visited that property. And he said, I'm going to do the restoration. I'm going to plant native trees, I'm going to plant native grasses, I'm going to plant native bushes. And 10 years later, he had his students go back and inventory that property. And it was a bio success story. Literally, hundreds of insects that weren't there before, dozens of bird species that had not visited that property for years. And there was an amazing rebirth that happened with that land. And so I'm here tonight to share that story with you, to say we can protect and play defense, but we must play offense with our existing land. And by doing that, we can create nature preserves on every single one of those 190,000 property owners that are owned by residents of Lancaster County. And so thank you so much for listening. The Conservancy tomorrow will be announcing our 50th nature preserve, a wonderful track up in Mountjoy Township that will be protected from development. But going forward, what I want to see is each of your properties joining that and having thousands of nature preserves. Thank you very much.